I'm learning in this political climate to get it by and by. But my grandmother also used to tell me, she said, boy, always tell the truth. If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about covering up for lies. Just tell the truth. Well, y'all, we need some truth-telling in this race. We need some truth-telling in our communities. We need some truth-telling once again in our politics. Too many people are giving up. They don't believe in the system anymore because they haven't seen the system work for them. Cycle after cycle, election after election, folks come through, and then when you go to check for them, they're not there for you anymore. They've forgotten what it was that we said we wanted to achieve. They've forgotten who it was that we were in this thing for. I want you to know that I'm not going to forget. I can't forget because forgetting would mean to forget myself. Forgetting would mean that I would have to dismiss the memories that I have watching my mother and my father struggle between which bills they could pay before something got cut off.
All right now.
It would cause me to forget the entrepreneur that I worked for. I used to sweep hair down in Richmond Heights in Mr. Bob's barbershop. Mr. Bob did everything he could to try to employ as many people as he could. Now, he didn't pay me a fair wage, y'all. I was a third grader, a fourth grader, a fifth grader, and I would go up to Mr. Bob's shop. He said, you want to work? Yes, sir, I want to work. All right, you want to work every day? I want you to come here after school. I want you to sweep up this hair. Right now, I report to Mr. Bob's shop, and I would sweep up hair. And at the end of the week, he would pay me. He wouldn't pay me each day, right? He wanted to make sure I had to show up. And at the end of the week, I would get enough money. Not all of what I wanted, right? Mr. Bob paid me about $3 a week. I should have reported it, but he was giving me a job, right? It was enough to go down the street to the cookie lady house. Get some lemon cookies.
Say that.
Right?
Right.
But there were lessons in that, right? I had to keep my promise. I had to show up. I had to do a little bit of work. And then I had to listen to his lessons, and they always came on time. They were long, but they always came right on time. To forget where I came from would also require me to forget the times that I would have to wait for the free dental clinic to come through the neighborhood in order to have our teeth cleaned.
Feel you, brother.
So when I talk about what it means to work to make sure that everybody gets access to health care, that we treat health care as a right and less as a privilege, I say that, y'all, because I know what it means not to have it. And once you know what it means, not because somebody told you about it, but because you've lived it, you'll go to work every day working earnestly to try to ensure that we make it better for the next person and the next person and the next person, which is why I am committed to expanding Medicaid for over 800,000 people in this state who are among the most medically needy. And they don't have access to it today. When I talk about what we've got to do to reform the criminal justice system in this state, I mean it. Because not one of us should be judged for the rest of our lives by our worst day. This is Sunday. That's what grace is about. Right? You can't claim grace on one day, but then to deny it from the next person.
All right now.
Right? Grace is grace always.
All right.
And it's time that we have a little bit of that back in our society. When I talk about standing up to make sure that our kids get access to a high quality early childhood education, it's because I know that 40% of our kids are starting kindergarten not ready to learn. Right? And guess what? Then the teacher's responsible for trying to bring them to scale for the next 12 years. And the truth is that when our kids start behind, they almost always stay behind. We've got to change those life outcomes. We know what we got to do. The question is, will we do it? My grandmother used to say, another grandmotherism, when you know better, son, you do better.
Right.
When you know better, you do better.
Yes.
Where some of our leaders know better and they're choosing not to do better. Well, if you allow me to be your governor, I promise you, y'all, I'm going to do better.
Yeah.
Not just for me, but for you. Do better for the faces I can't recognize. The names I cannot call. I'm going to do better for all of us, because I have to tell you, I believe in my heart of hearts that we all do better when we do better. There's no mystery to that. The rising tide, in my opinion, does actually lift all boats. That in order for you to be good, in order for you to do good in life, I don't need you to step on your neck and your back and pluck out your eyes just for my success. If our kids are educated, all of them, if they're learning next to each other, don't we realize the teacher can cover more material and all of our kids do better? If working people get a raise and they take that money and they spend it on rent and on mortgage and on consumption goods and maybe saving up enough to take a vacation every once in a while, don't we all know we do better? The small business, the big company alike. Don't we know that when we offer people second chances and then they are able to get out of that cycle of criminal justice and become models in our community, that we all do better, not just them, we all do better. I believe that firmly, y'all. But the truth is, we're not going to be able to have the kind of change we want unless we get out there and vote. Power sees nothing without a demand. And the best way to make good on our demand is to show up and to vote like our lives depend on it, y'all. We got to vote like our lives depend on it. Because the truth is, our lives do depend on who the next governor is of the great state of Florida. Let me tell y'all, I'm working every day. We are crisscrossing this state. I can't spend more time with you today, largely because I got to get to the next one and the next one. Because we're going places where Democrats haven't gone before. We are visiting parts of our state where they say we're not welcome. I went to Putnam County, not too far from here, the other week. That's a county we lost to Donald Trump by 30-something points, I'm told. Folks were like, what are you doing going to Putnam County? I said, they're voters in Putnam County, so we're going to Putnam County. And then we went from Putnam County over to Flagler County, not far from here. Same difference, an area that Democrats haven't won in a long time. He said, what are you doing going to Flagler? They're voters in Flagler County, and so we going. And between the two places, y'all, venues were big enough to take about 600 people. There was not enough room to receive everybody. We were flowing out of the back of that place. Flowing out of the back of it, right? Because the truth is that I don't care if you voted for Donald Trump or not. If you want a governor who's going to see to your needs, who's going to work on your behalf, then I want to be your candidate too. I want to be your candidate as well. Y'all, we've even campaigned in this area called the Villages. I don't know how many of y'all have been to the Villages. But the Villages is one of the most conservative voting precincts in all of the country. It's one of the most conservative in the state of Florida. And people are like, what are you going to the Villages for? It's 99% of the people there vote, and 98% and a half of them vote for Republicans, right? No room for me. Well, y'all, we went to the Villages, and I showed up, and there was not enough room to receive folks. 700 people flowing out of the back of the building. And I talked to them about my vision for the future of this state, and I talked to them about our North Star for what we can be when we work together. And when I finished, this elderly white gentleman stood up halfway through the place. And he said, I believe that Andrew Gillum ought to be the next governor of the great state of Florida. And then he went further and said, and if you agree with me, I want you to give him $20. Right? He pulled out 20 of his own dollars, y'all. And I got to admit to you, I thought, this is the Villages. I know you got more than $20. I didn't say it to him, but I thought it for sure. It's back to that being honest thing, right? I thought about it. I didn't say it, but he turned to the rest of the room and said, if anybody else believes Gillum ought to be governor, I want you to give him $5, $10, or $20. Well, y'all, we left that place raising nearly $6,000 in $5, $10, and $20 contribution. In the place that they told me I wasn't supposed to go. So what is the lesson, y'all? The lesson is we gotta be willing to go everywhere. We gotta be willing to talk to everybody. Because whether you voted for me or not, it is my goal to be your governor too. And